So welcome to another episode of Catch Up Call. We've got two Albion promotion winners from the mid-80s joining us on the call today, which is brought to you in association with our partner iTalk for all your broadband needs. So joining us today, we've got the leading goal scorer from that 87-88 promotion season, Garry Nelson, and the man that kept the ball out the net at the other end of the pitch, John Keeley. So pleased to have both on the call today. We'll start with Garry, and just really, I guess, how are things at the moment given the circumstances?
Sort of very surreal. A lot to try and get your head around at the moment, and just really hoping everybody is safe and well as best as they can be, and making sure that they all follow the advice that we're all having to follow. It's not natural to any of us, I know, but I think it's sound advice, and it's a very worrying time for everybody. So thinking it's quite challenging, and I think we're football, but in the overall scheme of things, it does put it into the shade when you know kind of what's going on in the background in lots of hospitals.
And for you professionally, Garry, at the moment, really busy at the moment as well.
Yeah, it's busy firefighting, to be honest with you. So it's the scenario's entirely changed. So we've got a big operation down in Romford that specialises obviously in travel insurance. So we're particularly having a tough time at the moment in terms of nobody can travel, and our core market is generally over 50. So we're going through some challenges, but I think we're pretty well geared up, providing that it doesn't go on as long as some people are indicating, then we should be okay. But I think that's the immediate priority. The immediate priority is that you get through safe and well.
And John, for you down at Portsmouth, obviously a few of your players, your colleagues down there have tested positive with the virus. I guess you must be self-isolating, or have been in a period of self-isolation on the back of that.
Well, after we played Arsenal, we had to have a test anyway because Arteta had it. So every single person involved in that game that day had to have the test, and obviously the 4 that come back were positive. But when we had the test on that Monday, that was the 14 days that we'd played them. So basically, we'd got through that period, and the 4 guys that had it, they just got mild symptoms. So they're the ones that had to continue isolating. So the rest of us were fine because obviously I got cleared, and I was free to do what I wanted, So thankfully, I didn't catch it. So especially at our age, Gaz, eh?
We're on that special list, aren't we?
We are. Stay in list.
I don't think you're quite there yet, but I just obviously down at Portsmouth, goalkeeping coaching. How's that? It's been a good season so far.
Yeah, not too bad. Craig's done really well. So he got into the Scotland squad, and then young Alex has come in, who I know that Garry knows of. He's just done absolutely brilliant. And I honestly believe he's going to go all the way. So,
certainly one to watch. So, just obviously the reason we had you on today was to reflect on one of the great seasons in the Albion's history, that 87-88 campaign. But just cast your mind back to before that, John. You joined the club, I think, from it was
Chelsea.
From non-league football, 1986. Went on to play 130 plus games. What do you remember about coming to Brighton and signing for the club?
Well, obviously, when I got the phone call to say that Brighton had come in for me and do I want to go for talks, it was a no-brainer. I wasn't doing a great deal anyway. I was happy playing for Chelsea because I started enjoying my football again. But I got down there and I spoke with Barry Lloyd. Actually did the deal, He was like in charge of the reserves then, so obviously I was going to be like in the reserve team. But I just thought it was a great chance and great opportunity to come to a big club and have another try really. And so once I got down, we agreed terms, and I absolutely loved it. And then obviously a bit disappointing. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I got into the team and did okay. But unfortunately, it's one of those seasons where Alan Murray got the sack midway through. Barry took over, and we eventually we went down. So, which wasn't very nice. But on a personal point of view, it got me back into playing pro football, and I really enjoyed it.
And that summer, Garry, you arrived. Again, tell us how that happened and what you remember of signing for Brighton. I think you arrived as a winger and ended up being converted very swiftly into a striker.
Well, again, John's got a role to play in this because John and I made our league debuts together at Southend when we were both 18, in over 79. So John and I go an awful long way back.
Yeah.
And obviously stayed in touch during various times through football. But when I was playing at Plymouth, we played away at Brighton. I think it might have been about, I don't know, I'm guessing around March time, something like that. And Keeley actually came over and saw me in the hotel, and he marked my card that that Barry Lloyd actually really was very interested in me and was just asking me about, what my contract situation. Well, John was asking me on behalf of Barry, I'm sure, about what the contract situation was, and I was saying, the contract's up in the summer, but I'm loving it down in Plymouth and really enjoying it, but I'm hoping to sort out a longer deal there. But it's always nice when you get feedback that somebody's actually interested in you, and if things don't go the way you expect them to on a contract talk, then it's always nice to know. And then Dave Smith, who John again knows very, very well, he was our manager that brought us into professional football. It took me down to Plymouth. I'd had 2 wonderful years down there, thoroughly enjoyed it, and was really enjoying life down there as well. But for whatever reason, the contract offer came through, which was nowhere near what I was expecting it to. And I spoke to, Portsmouth was straight in for me, but Plymouth wanted quite a significant transfer fee when they heard it was a club that's just gone up to the first division. I spoke to Ray Lewington at Fulham at the time as well, and then of course Barry Lloyd followed up on his interest as well, and well, the rest is history from there. They made me a very, very good offer, which I couldn't really turn down, to be honest with you, at the time. Just having my second child, there was important elements to be thinking about. I'm very unhappy to sort of leave Plymouth as I did at the stage of how well I'd done down there, but football's a short career, and loyalty can work 2 ways. So I was disappointed that we weren't able to sort something out with Plymouth, but it opened up a new opportunity for me, and I came down to Brighton. Obviously, we were aware that the club had gone through a very, very difficult few years, and that there was a lot of kind of animosity towards the club and the setup. But coming as a new club, you're only looking forward and looking at the players around you and looking at the players that were being brought in. You would thought, well, we've got to have a good go here. Surely we've got a good enough squad of players to be challenging there or thereabouts. So, and I think Barry was trying to sign Mark Steen. I think he was still at Luton at the time, but that didn't work out. So we were starting to have obviously our pre-season friendlies. So I said to him, can I have a go at playing up front? I think I could do a really good job for you up front. And obviously Kevin Bremner had just come in as well. So he gave it a go in a couple of the pre-season friendlies, and it just seemed to work really, really well. And that's how we started off. And in a very, very good side, a very creative side, where we were tending to dominate games because of the passing ability we had in the side. That it was a dream for a player playing up front, because we were just creating lots of opportunities. And thankfully for me, a lot of those opportunities were going in, unusually. And meanwhile, at the other end, we had some really strong defenders coming into the side as well. And of course, in John, we had a keeper who I knew really well and knew what John's capability was. And he had a fantastic season that season. And I think, if I'm fair to him the following season. I think you had an even better season, John. I think you were Player of the Year the following season, weren't you?
Yeah, I did get Player of the Year the following season.
Yeah. And that was a much more difficult season when John had a lot more to do.
What were your memories, John, of that season? Obviously, you had a decent back four in front of you, and players at the other end of the pitch like Garry, like Kevin Bremner, who were in amongst the goals. But what were your recollections of that early part of the season? Did you genuinely believe that you could bounce straight back on the back of that relegation?
Yeah, because like Garry said, you know, we'd signed quite a lot of players, and it looked really strong right from the word go. And I always fancied that. I mean, Dean was an unbelievable passer of the ball, wasn't he, Gaz? Like, you know.
Yeah,
like,
very talented.
A really talented player, like, and all I could see was goals all over the pitch, really. And I just really thought that we looked really strong, and we're going to have a really good season. And thankfully, that's what happened. Like, obviously, like.
Yeah, and as I said, for the rest of the season, really, it was for me personally, it turned out to be a dream. But you're only as good as the people around you, and we certainly fed lots and lots of good opportunities, and we did have a good squad. There was a good blend there between quite a few experienced players. Kevin was experienced. We brought Justin in from Sheffield United, who was very experienced. We had Doug Ruby there, who was very, very experienced. Curbs obviously came in.
He was scary, but he was scary, weren't he?
Doug Ruby.
He was rude, weren't he?
Tell us about some of those. Tell us about some of those characters and the stories behind them, and some of the memories from that seaon. I mean,
What's
there must
the
be
parental guidance rating on this show?
I think we can push the boundaries a little bit.
No. Well, I mean, Doug, British accent sometimes quite a strong accent anyway. But Doug came from right up north in the sort of the wilderness area, so
he was nice in training.
Oh, he's a gentleman, absolutely gentleman. Yeah, he was. Until he crossed the line. Until he crossed the line. I don't think Doug and VAR would have gone down too well. I think that would have been that would have been problematic. I think he might have been permanently sidelined. I think with VAR. And Kevin was a real character as well. We shared a house down at Angwin, myself, Kev, Doug, Alan Kirbishley and Truss. And I remember Kev took a dinghy out one day, canoe, out at Angwin, and he was out ages and ages. And we were starting to get worried about him. And anyway, the long and short of it was he'd gone out miles and he bloody capsized his canoe. And he had to swim back the canoe to get back in. He couldn't right it, and he was out there for 8. He came back, and it was in the middle of summer, but he was absolutely freezing.
Oh, brilliant!
So just looking at the season, obviously that.
Let's get back to the season.
Yeah, great stories, but looking back on the season, you had a great cup run as well. Fantastic run during the winter as well. Where you went unbeaten, I think, for a string of games that included that cup run, right through till just after Christmas. And then in the January, I think in the 4th round of the FA Cup, if my memory serves me right, played Arsenal at the Goldstone, a game that really stands out for a lot of people, and probably unfortunate not to take them back to Highbury.
Played really, really well, absolutely. Back of the match in the first half. They nicked the goal from a knockdown at a corner, a right messy goal. But, as John said, one chance and they took it, and we've been backing away playing brilliantly and couldn't convert. Thankfully, I managed to get one, I think, quite near half-time. I think at very least, we deserved a replay up at Highbury. That's at the very least, actually, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But the difference between us playing at that level and at First Division level, as Arsenal were at the time, was that they were clinical at the key moment. And they got one sniff of a chance and scored. And we were disappointed. We were very disappointed. But that's actually a decent reflection of the fact that we played so well, because if you'd have got battered by them, you'd have been embarrassed and you'd have got on with it. But we'd played so well that we were actually gutted.
It was, yeah.
So well, and obviously it had a fantastic crowd out there as well. I think we had about 26,000 in the
It was
Goldstone.
brilliant, wasn't it? The atmosphere was
huge crowd, huge crowd. You scored that day. Obviously, you scored the equaliser, but I think the goal that those that were lucky enough to be there that they remember was the goal at Brentford. I think in the previous round, Garry. John, you'd have had a great view of that. Stood in goal.
That's the best goal I've seen.
Firstly, John, what do you remember? And was that the best goal you ever saw?
Yeah, I always said to guys that goal was unbelievable. I can't remember how many players he took on, guys. I kept going, shoot. What a goal that is! That's unbelievable.
I was getting shouted at, pass. But no, that's very kind. But it was a special goal. It was. It's one of those.
Where did you pick the ball up? Can you remember?
I think I was at Loftus Road. Was that far deep? No, I was in just inside our own half, with my back to their goal in our own half in the centre circle.
Can you remember how many players you went past? I wasn't lucky enough to be there, but I've heard so many fans talk about it. And
roughly, I would probably say 5. That where I got the ball, I went past one on the turn. Then they were set out like cones almost. So I think I went past another 2, just into their half and then just beyond it. And then I was running at the back 4. And I don't know from memory, but I think it might have been Bob Booker or even Graham Hogg. Might be wrong there. And I just threw a little shape or 2. So I think I beat him as well. And then obviously it's not going round him, but I obviously stuck it past the goalkeeper at the near post as well. So I'd like to say it was about 52, and the more I tell you, it gets more and more. But thinking realistically, I've got to think that there's 11 players on a pitch and you wouldn't beat everyone. But I think it was probably 5.
Brilliant. And I guess that's just a sign of those times. The fact that, if that was today, there'd be video of it. I bet you must be gutted you haven't got that on videotape.
Oh, absolutely gutted because I think
was it the best goal you ever scored?
It was the best individual goal I've ever scored. The way I look at goals and things like that is the importance and significance of the game is a big marker as well. So, but in terms of an individual goal I've ever scored, then probably that one is definitely there. But it was the only goal that season that wasn't actually. It's the only game that season that wasn't covered by anybody. So, at the time, obviously with things going as they were for me on the pitch. It might have added a few extra shekels to the price tag, but I certainly wasn't thinking about that. I just enjoyed the moment, and that's something I can think back on and treasure. But it's just disappointing that you haven't got a video thing to sit down and show your grandson or something. But
yeah, mate, what's a goal?
Over that.
I never that goal, mate.
Yeah. So
I guess in a way, though, that makes it more special for those that were there. In a way, that they see it once, they only saw it once, but they were privileged and lucky enough to be there for it.
And that's generally the feedback that I get from those people whenever I see as there are on Twitter every now and again a poll about best goals scored at Brighton. The advantage that an awful lot of the players have got these days is that there's a document of it straight away, whereas that one was. John and I were there on the day. We know that it was a special goal, and we'll have to remember it very fondly as we do our memories generally of football and the football that we had to be involved as long as we did during the game, and have special moments like that and promotion winning sides, because I know more than anybody, John, that there were some downtimes as well, and I know John certainly had that during several times. Came out bigger, better, and stronger, and likewise over 18 years that I played, there's certainly been plenty of down moments as well. So those sort of lovely memories more than make up for some of those more difficult times.
True, that's so true, Gaz. I was talking to someone, like one of the lads at Portsmouth, And I was talking about it. He said, "Oh, you must have enjoyed your career." And I said, "Well, when you finish your career, you actually, if you look back and say, I really enjoyed 4 or 5 seasons, I think you've had a good career."
Yeah, well, most of the time it's not. I mean, it sounds very blasé to say it, but most of the times you're scrapping out to win every game, aren't you? It's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a fine divide at that level. There's a fine divide, the good sides and the bad sides, and
yeah, exactly.
you get into a run and confidence is flowing and it all goes well, but it doesn't take a lot to unsettle that. And then on the other side, when you're in a bad run, you know, your confidence drains and generally everybody's down in the dumps a wee bit, and you need a special group of characters and individuals at times to drag you through and get you out. And you know, fantastic first season where everything went well, and then I can remember going straight back into the second division, and we were in relegation zone pretty much all season until
straight away, weren't we?
We had a good little run at the end, and in the end, comfortable well before the end of the season, I think. But
looking at the running on that season, I think you went into April on the back of a couple of draws, perhaps looking more likely as playoff contenders at that stage. But I think you won 7 of the last 8, drew the penultimate game at Chester. But what do you remember of that running, John? Because it is fair to say it was looking more likely that it was going to be a route through the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
Going into early April.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Paul. But to be fair, we never stopped believing that we could do it, and that was the main thing. And we were making chances, so we've always got the chance in every game. What I remember mostly about them last 7 games is then when we got to play Chester, we went 2-0 up, and we drew 2-2. And on the way back, we was coming back, we was on the coach, and Walsall was a team that could actually overtake us. And they were playing in the evening for some unknown reason. And anyway, we were stuck in this traffic jam. Like, it went on for ages and ages, didn't it, Nels? Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was on the coach, and it come through they'd lost. And all of a sudden, we had like the party bus, didn't we? We went from like doom and gloom, didn't we? Thinking, oh, we'd thrown it away.
Yeah.
To like thinking, blimey, we win on Saturday, we're up against Bristol Rovers.
Yeah.
And the whole atmosphere changed, didn't it?
After that Chester draw, what was the build up like? Because obviously, you know, final game of the season at home, massive crowd at the Goldstone. What was it like in training that week?
I think at that stage in the season, I mean, we're all grown up adults. We know exactly what's before us. Looking at the Bristol Rovers side, you know, they were a decent side. They had a lot of good players. But I think we knew what we had to do. And we went up 2-0, so we did give a goal away second half. So we, having done that at Chester on the Monday, probably made it more nervy for ourselves than we should do. But you know, we managed to get there, and then we had one hell of a party. So
what was that like?
Well, they're always very special days, and you look back at those, and they're very rare days within your career. But you have to absolutely make the most of it. And when the final whistle goes, and it virtually feels like the whole crowd are on the pitch trying to mob you and thank you and celebrate with you, and then you go up back into the dressing room, and you're just absolutely made up for all your teammates, for all the hard work and everything, and relieved. I think there's a lot of relief in all of that as well. But you know, it's something that you as a group of collective individuals have strived for all season, and the relief and the release is just amazing. And all you want to do is celebrate and be happy and in front of the crowd, and really, to be honest with you, soak up all the adulation.
Two tales I want to talk to both of you about. Firstly, you, John. Is it an urban myth or is it fact that Perry Digweed failed a fitness test? You might have been in a certain public house not far from the Goldstone ground, enjoying.
I failed the fitness test.
Yeah, tell us the story behind it. Go on.
So I failed the fitness test. I damaged the ligaments in my thumb. So I was told that I wasn't playing. So in them days, it was the normal to like you'd come in and you'd go away for an hour, go and have a couple of drinks and watch the game. So I went down to the stadium pub, which was literally probably about 400 or 500 yards away from the ground. And next thing, like I was playing pool. I won't lie, I was on my second pint. And
This is brilliant. I've not heard this story, James.
really?
No, I've not heard this story. It's brilliant.
So we was playing Bournemouth. So yeah, so like anyway, I get a phone call off Malcolm. He said, Perry's not turned up. He said, you've got to get yourself down there, you're playing. So I had to run from the stadium pub. Like seriously, I've finished my pint. Then like obviously I run down.
Brilliant.
I run down, and then so then I played like two pints, and I had a pie as well because obviously like, I didn't think I was playing. So yeah, so that's it. We lost 1-0 to Bournemouth.
Most importantly, were you at fault for the goal?
No. I'd say straight away. In fact, I fancy doing it every game.
In them days, there might have been a few that were good candidates for that. But and Garry, just one thing from obviously after you or as you were hanging up your boots, the 2 books that you wrote. I saw a comment on social media the other day which said the 2 best books you will read about football, and that was from another author. Award-winning books. I think you were shortlisted for the William Hill Sports Book.
Wow.
Cracking reads if anybody hasn't read them, both of them. One covers your time at Charlton, the other one covered a spell in charge as assistant manager at Torquay, I should say. Just tell us a bit about those, because and anybody listening or watching, I would strongly recommend getting a copy, getting the ebook if you can't get out to get a copy, because they're cracking reads, both of them.
Well, I very much appreciate your positive reviews on it. That's lovely of you to say, and thankfully for me, the opportunity to share some of my sort of day by day experiences as a pro, but to reflect across a season and the ups and downs you have, and the fears and concerns that you have, and the highs and the lows. And really what I was trying to achieve was for anybody who had wanted to be a pro, to give them a real insight into what it was like to be a pro. But also for the rest of us pros who didn't scale the absolute heights, it was to just try and tell it as it was, in terms of this is what reality is like for the vast majority of us working pros. It is a scrap, it is a battle, it is a sort of game of survival, both physically and mentally, and along the way you meet some great people, you have some great laughs, but you have the constant worry about whether you're going to be able to support your family, etc., etc. So I think treading the line of not straying too far in terms of getting anybody in any trouble or anything else, and trying to reflect it as accurately as I could, I think I trod that line very, very well. Certainly I don't seem to have fallen out with anybody. It was an opportunity that to share. I didn't think for a moment that anybody would be interested enough on a story about me to actually read it, but it seems to have struck a genuine chord. And for me, the lovely thing is that I've had so much positive feedback from sports journalists, from authors, from managers, from other players, from football fans. And as I said, I think the overwhelming feedback has just been what great insights they were. And it's just really given me a view to, if I'd have been a footballer, John and I would love a quid for everyone who said I could have been a contender. But, for all those lads that sort of went through the Tuesdays and Thursdays that we did down at Roots Hall, and were one of 60 lads that never got to go anywhere in football, at least it gives them an insight into what it would have been like.
Yeah, and for anyone listening that hasn't read them, the great thing is obviously that year at Charlton, you do talk a lot about your you reflect on your career, and obviously that includes a lot of your time at the Albion. Similarly, in Left Foot in the Grave, which is the second book, that season down at Torquay, and a real eye opener. I think you even played against Albion in that season and scored on New Year's Day. I think was that season as well. Would I be right in saying that? I'm sure if my memory serves me right.
It was the last season that Albion played at the Golston, and obviously a pal of mine, Steve Gritt, we'd actually been away in Rhode. I used to run some coaching clinics in Rhode Island, and I'd invited Steve to go with us. So he'd been on my coaching clinics in the summer, and then he got out of the blue. He got the Brighton job and did a fantastic job because they were like absolutely dead and buried. In the early
unbelievable job. Yeah.
Gritty came down with I think Jeff Wood, who's a pal as well, and John probably knows Jeff as well. They came down to Plainmoor, and I just remember that I think it was possibly the only game that day, New Year's Day.
It was like playing on an ice rink. I remember it was how the game was on. I'll never know. It was
because
unbelievable.
The chairman went out with the pitchfork and said to the ref that he'd been working it all evening, and was like, I wouldn't say he was adopting a threatening pose with the ref, but he was putting him up with his fork. And it was one of those frosts that actually was dry, so it was probably like playing, a pre-season game when the ground's very, very hard. But it was dry at least. It wasn't uneven. It was rock hard, and it was, I think, bloody hell, it was about -6, -7 in
freezing.
When it was freezing cold, and I scored the winner in the last minute, I believe.
I remember it well.
And
I remember it well.
And was it Smithy, the long-legged fullback? Was it?
Yeah, I got a feeling Phil Andrews put Brighton ahead, and then I think you guys equalised, and then very late on, and I think he was probably reminiscent of Bambi on ice, trying to keep it out the back of the net.
Yeah, and I think he sort of lunged at it, and it hit a bobble just as he was lunging, and it bobbled over his leg and went in. It was not my most clinical of finishes, but
they all count, though, mate.
I had to go and say sorry to Gritty afterwards and apologise to the Albion faithful who are in their New Year's Day. But Gritty did such a good day that, of course, they survived on the last day of the season down at Hereford. We'd played at Hereford 2 games before that, and that was my last ever league game there. We drew 1-1, and that was the point that we needed to stay up. So that was job done for me. And actually, as it turned out, it hadn't been my plan at the time, but as it turned out, it was my last game. So we were definitely not fancying being either Hereford or Brighton on that last game, and one of them having to sadly exit from the league. But from my perspective, I'm sure from John's as well, we've been Albion former players, and close to our hearts, it was great that it was Albion that managed to stay up.
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, one last little tale. I always remember reading this I think you had a column after the first book came out, and I remember reading in, I think it may have been 442 or one of the football magazines, but pre-season or end of season tour it may have been to Russia. And a certain chairman at the time, whose name I won't mention, not very popular with Albion fans, but just tell us that tale, because I can remember reading it at the time and finding it absolutely hilarious.
John, were you on that trip to Russia?
No, I was injured.
Oh, blimey. I was injured as well, but somehow so, not without blowing my own trumpet, the lads used to sort of put on me certain things because I could put a few words together. So they went and asked me to go and do the negotiation for all the money with the locals. So I went off and did some negotiating to try and get all of this, to get some currency and see what we could do. But in the meantime, all the lads, bless them, had all teamed up to make sure they were all right. And it ended me being in with our kit man, Jock. And so it was a very unlikely pairing, me and Jock, but he's a great lad. But he'd come well prepared, so he got all sorts in the room. He'd bought ladies' tights, he'd bought old tracksuits, he'd bought cassette tapes, he'd bought all sorts to do bits of wheeling and dealing. And by the end of the room, our room was like an Aladdin's cave. We had about 30 Russian hats, and we had caviar, we had tea urns. It was just hysterical, the stuff that we were getting. And all the way through, the chairman had been asking whether we could get in one of those, you know, Russian military outfits that they wear on the May Day parade. He'd always fancied that. So we obviously got him the Russian hat, and that was not a problem. We got him some boots. We managed to get him some boots. We got him some trousers. We got him a shirt. But the pièce de résistance was the great big overcoat with all the red insignia on the collars. And it was coming towards the end of the trip, our time in Belarus, and we went to our contact and said, look, we really do need to get this. He said, no, that's a big problem. He said, I'll be in all sorts of trouble. And Jockey just flashed the cash. The guy's eyes lit up and he said, leave it with me, leave it with me. And lo and behold, there was a knock at the door a bit later, and there was this unbelievable full-length coat. So we're travelling back on this train from Minsk to Moscow overnight, and it's one of those old trains that have got the corridors down the side. It's not, you know, with each cabin's got its own little section, and then you walk down the side of the whole compartment. So the chairman donned his complete military outfit, and somebody had got him the word for tickets in Russian. So Greg donned this all up. They'd obviously been on the vodka for quite some time, and he started walking up and down our carriageway, waking everybody up and asking them for their tickets in his uniform, which didn't land particularly well with some of the occupants, but it was hilarious. Anyway, we're in the middle of, it must be like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. We're in the middle of nowhere. Greg's had a lot of drink, and in the middle of nowhere, and we're at this station, and the chairman thought it would be a very good idea to go out off the train and go over to the platform the other side and demonstrate his goose step to all the lads who were sitting there cheering him on. And so off he goes onto the platform and starts goose stepping down and doing a Russian walk. And then the train sounds its horn and starts to move. At which point Greg's face changed unbelievably, and then he started realising he had a big problem. So he started to run back down the platform as the train was going the other way to cross the rails so he could get on, and he managed to get on. There was what, like the old westerns, it had like that staircase at the back, and he was able to jump on there and get on the very last one of those. But in doing so, he'd been a bit sick and had basically ruined his whole coat, so he chucked it out the back of the train. We've got a vision of, the headlines: Brighton Hove Albion chairman arrested in darkest Belarus with a full military uniform on, been arrested as a spy.
Fantastic, brilliant stuff. That's what a great story. But so sort of brings everything to a close. Great note to end on. Just want to thank you both for your time, giving up the time, reflecting on what I'm sure for so many Albion fans would have been one of their favourite seasons as well. I'm sure for you two as well, it ranks up there. But really appreciate you giving up the time for this catch-up call. We'd love to see you both at the Amex very soon when we can start thinking and getting back to football. I'm sure the fans will be delighted to see you. So, but for now, stay safe and well, and thanks ever so much for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Great to talk to you, Joe. You take care, buddy.
Nice to speak to you, mate.